Yeah. Creatrix out there says that translates to the world is about to change. Very cool. Yes, it is. The world is about to change. And it looks like sooner than later, judging from the Q posts that have come up recently, looks like sooner than later because, let's see, the one I really, really liked was let's go back to 2960. It's got that little YouTube video. I'm going to go ahead and put that up on share and hope you guys get it. And I think maybe I have to, I don't know if I can play it, if I can play it in its entirety. So I'll just break it up. But hold on just a minute here. Okay, hold on. Okay, I got back to the start. It's a minute 39, so I'll have to do it in chunks. It is not a White House or government site, so I'll have to break it up into pieces. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. And I'm going to play it in pieces, so apologies for that. But it is what it is. So this was in number 2960.
I want to do things. You know, I keep hearing about investigations, fatigue. Like almost from the time I announced I was going to run, they've been giving us this investigation fatigue. It's been a long time. They got nothing, zero. You know why? Because there is nothing. But they can play that game, but we can play it better. Because we have a thing called the United States Senate.
Okay, and this came out actually the day after the November 6th election. And the Democrats, of course, were doing their usual, playing their games, getting involved in the, we're going to keep investigating him until he just goes away. Well, yeah, good luck on that, folks. Not going to happen.
And a lot of very questionable things were done between leaks of classified information and many other elements that should not have taken place. And all you're going to do is end up in back and forth and back and forth, and 2 years is going to go up, and we won't have done a thing. If that happens, then we're going to do the same thing, and government comes to a halt. There are many things we can get along on without a lot of trouble that we...
Okay, apologies again for breaking this up. I'm trying to do it at, not doing very well at doing it at points that don't interfere with what he's trying to say, but...
Agree very much with them, and they agree with us. I would like to see bipartisanship. I'd like to see unity. And I think we have a very good chance of, and maybe not on everything, but I think we have a very good chance of seeing that.
If they start...
Okay, here comes the part that I really, really like. I'm going to just go ahead and play this. This is like, let's see, I think it's 28 seconds long.
Start investigating you, that you can play that game and investigate
better
them.
than them.
Can you compartmentalize that?
And I think I know more than they know.
Can you compartmentalize that and still continue to work with them for the benefit of the rest of the country?
No.
Or are all bets off?
No. If they do that, then it's just all it is a warlike posture.
And so then wait a minute, then the
Did you get it? Warlike posture.
follow-up.
You heard my answer. Go ahead.
Warlike posture. Okay. Well, then in that case, let's see here. Let's go back to the Q post and let's go to, that was number 2960 where I played that. It said promises made, promises kept. Yeah, well, here we go to 2961, and it says, is there a benefit, think public optics, to allowing your enemy to open the front door? I'd say the benefit is you get to blast them because they are now breaking into your home, aren't they? Warlike posture activated. Thank you for playing, Okay, give them enough rope, they will hang themselves, but in this case, basically open themselves up to some howitzers you got aimed at your front door. What do you think about that? And then we have a lot of these different Q posts here that seem to be military type information. And the first line of 2962 is protect underscore MGL. Now, Thumper brought to my attention the MGL could very well mean mogul. And mogul, MOGUL, happens to be President Trump's Secret Service nickname, as Satoru's was renegade. And we know that renegade means traitor. Isn't that interesting that the Secret Service gave Satoru the effectively, as far as the definition goes, effectively named him traitor. That's pretty apt, I think. So, and it says here, protect underscore MGL, SJAH underscore X dash 830198374, kill box, and I'm going to say kill box, minus 48. Close kill box. D fire underscore good, location assist underscore good, Q. And then, so minus 48. Everybody was wondering what minus 48 meant. You see our numbers are really down now, down to 116. I'm sorry about you guys getting booted constantly. This just sucks. But there has been some question about what minus 48 means. It was pointed out earlier today that minus 48, it's interesting because Easter Sunday is 48 days away from today. It's still today here, the 4th, here on the West Coast. So minus 48 tomorrow will be, or for you guys over there across the midnight mark, you're already into the 5th, so it'd be minus 47 for you guys, if that's the implication, that it's actually the days leading up to Easter. That would be kind of an appropriate day to nail these guys down, wouldn't it? Where, the day of resurrection, where the whole world changes. That one brings tears to my eyes. 2963, reiteration of 2962, and then it says down below MGL as in mogul, change, underscore route, underscore under, assist, P underscore 193. I don't know what that might mean, but it could be the call sign of one of the Secret Service members, and under, that may be that they took him down to the secure room underneath the White House there. Don't know, but I'm not an aficionado of military type language or a security detail type language, at least not this. I'm not familiar with this. But here we have a repeat of in 2964 of 2963. Clear all nons. That would be non-connected to POTUS, I would guess. Get rid of all the civilians, all of the staff members. Get them all out of the area. And then it goes to minus 48 again. And because the time didn't change, of course, this was all within a few minutes, but the time didn't change. So we don't think that 48 minutes, we think it's probably 48 days or 48 hours, maybe even, but we don't know. I don't know what it is now. We haven't seen any other indication. And the Q posts stop at 2969 without any further illumination, and I hate using that word, but I'll use it here anyway, without further enlightenment as to what 48 might mean. That's signed Q. 2965 then goes to, it doesn't repeat 2964, it says dark pattern active. once again, kill box minus 48. And then LMT, limit underscore no underscore nons. So that limit the area to, non-combatants maybe. And then Q, sign Q. Once again, we go up to 2966, battery A underscore roof 1A. Now, what happens if this is actually an incursion attempt on the White House? Well, they're going to have, battery A underscore roof 1A, battery F underscore ground 9G, locations around the perimeter. That's my guess. Active underscore commence, track report. Are they tracking 2 entities? Track confirm, tracking 2 entities. Still a question, don't know. There's no question marks there. But then it's got, once again, a kill box minus 48. Close kill box, dark, Q. And I recall today when we had Patriotsky on here, he was pointing out that the kill box information is bold or emboldened, whichever the case you want to call it. That actually doesn't have much to do with anything other than the way that the Q scrapers operate. It's not. It isn't written that way when they come in the chans. It actually, the scraper itself emboldens the kill boxes there. If Patriotsky, if you're listening, that's the reason for the bold letters, the kill box bold letters. So just to let you know on that. And that one's signed Q. Then we get up to 2967. This all happened in a matter of a few minutes. I believe from the time this entire thing started was, 1854, 654, 04 Eastern was the first one here that started the activity, what we thought was maybe tactical activity. 654 or 1854 Eastern, and we're only up to, by the time it gets done with the tactical stuff, 1901. So we're looking at how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Q posts, all within a 7-minute period, and all of them apparently tactical in nature, by the way that their wording was. And then 2967 was at 19:01:09 Eastern Standard Time. Adjust for your time zone, of course. Public comms prevent. And I would suggest that what that means is that cut off all communications to the outside from the secure area. Switch private underscore reg C or R reg C. That might be the frequency, transmission frequency that they're using. FS on incoming. Now that's a question right there. My thought was full stop, possibly. Don't know. I don't know what FS means. There's nothing, when you hover over it, there's no statement of what that means, and there's no little answer box. So till we have more information on that, my thought was that either it was a full stop on whatever it was that was coming in, the two that they were tracking, or it's a full stop on incoming transmissions. Could be that too. And that was Q, signed Q. Then we go to this, excuse me?
Could it be fail safe?
Fail safe could be. What does a fail safe mean? Fail safe means it's like a dead man switch. I hate using that term, but that's, it's like if anybody's not familiar with what a dead man switch is, what it is a push button, spring-loaded push button, just for for the sake of illustration here, it's a push button with a spring loaded so that if the person pushing the button happens to not have the ability to continue pushing the button, the switch activates. That's what a dead man switch is. That's what a fail-safe is. It operates in the case where there's nobody overlooking the situation. That's
Frequency shift was also suggested.
frequency shift on incoming. That might be good. I like it. Frequency shift. Yeah, I see that. Dead cat switch. Yeah, no. Dead cat doesn't leave his post. Doesn't matter if I'm breathing or not. I'm still going to be here. Not on my watch. 2968. That's the one with all these symbols here. Oh, we've got Gmail. We've got, oh, goody. Looks exactly like Masonic Royal Rich Apron. Oh, we got Facebook. Look at that. Looks exactly like Masonic Tubal Cain. Apple App Store. Oh, gee, Andrew Product Store. Oh, goody, Freemason emblem. How about Google Chrome? Divine King sign, 666. Oh, we all know what that number means, huh? You know, just hope you never look in the mirror and find that on the top of your head. Google Play. Well, that looks similar to Seal of Satan, doesn't it? Gee whiz, what a surprise. Yeah, remember when Google used to have that motto that they had on the front of their building, and they had it on all the stuff that they put out there that said, don't be evil? I think they just wrote one of those red circles around don't, and then put a slash through it. Then we have the Google GPS with the eye, and the Eye of Providence over here with the same kind of little, little planet kind of floating in the iris right next to the pupil. Isn't that interesting? We have Reddit Premium, a Fox Business article. Google. Oh yeah, I was there when Radix and Good Dog were covering this. Sorry. Oh. Google continues work on controversial China search engine report. And they said, no. When they had that hearing, remember when they had that hearing in front of Congress there, I think it was the Senate committee. Here's a nice little headline. Okay, Google Nest. I assume that's similar to Alexa? I don't know. I don't own either one of them, would not own either one of them. But it says Google is admitting that Nest users were not told about the existence of a microphone on their devices. But Google admits it didn't tell Nest users about built-in mic, but was never intended to be a secret. We're not going to tell you about it, but it's not a secret. Oh no, couldn't be. We wouldn't do that to our customers, would we? Oh yeah, wait a minute. Yes, we would. Okay. Google could face a backlash over privacy after admitting that Nest users were not told about the existence of a microphone on their devices. How nice. Don't you just love it? It's nice to know that Google is not disappointing as far as being deep state, though, isn't it? Well, maybe not. Google is reportedly continuing to work on a search engine in China, according to an internal investigation by the tech giant's employees, putting the controversial project back into the spotlight after it was abandoned following condemnation from lawmakers in both parties. The initiative, known internally as Project Dragonfly, we've heard about that, was said to be ready for release in April 2019. But media leaks on Google's plans to comply with Chinese censorship rules in order to launch the engine brought intense opposition from within its own ranks, as well as from elected officials. People actually in Google that are going against the corporate line. I wonder how long they kept their jobs, huh? Did I hear? Was that you, Thumper?
That was me. I'm back.
All right. We ready for our guest?
Yeah, I've got the guests rounded up. I got the cats rounded up. I got the dogs rounded up, and I got my coffee rounded up. I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, I've just been covering Q posts in the interim period there. So,
All right.
all right.
Well, I got to tell you, we have a guest here with us tonight, and he's one of our fellow patriots out there who has quite a stack of stuff that he's been investigating and digging into, and he's been DMing just all kinds of amazing information to Dead Cat and myself and a few other folks. And so TM or TMC, I think we're going to call you tonight. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Thumper. Thank you.
You bet. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. It's really a pleasure to have you on here. The stuff that you've been sending to Dead Cat and myself has just been amazing stuff. Do you want to give a little background on what how this came to be and how you got interested in all of this, and kind of give the folks a kind of an idea of what led you to where you are right now?
Sure. I worked for a reputable telecommunications company and developed regional training that impacted employees and customers nationally, and did that for about 3 or 4 years while managing a crew of technicians outside that performed work functions varying from working inside a telecommunications central office all the way out to a customer premises. And the training ranged from administrative to practical application, technical application. So 5G started coming out, saw some pictures that were floating around in the email strings that anybody who works in a corporate environment, you get 100, 200 emails a day. Saw antennas on poles that were at body level, head level of a second-story building, which was just behind the sidewalk that the antenna was mounted on, and immediately thought to myself, wow, that's not that far away. And with the training that we had to go through annually, it occurred to me that that may or may not be an issue. So I raised it up the flagpole, so to speak. I immediately was told to research safety specifications myself because I was tasked with developing training anyway. And through the course of my initial investigations, I came across some information that was concerning. I shared it and was told to look the other way, and I could not do so. As a result, I no longer work for that company and have had ample time to continue my investigation. It's very, very interesting what I've uncovered. I'm by no means a scientist, a physicist, a chemist. All of those things are, for lack of a better term, I think required to really get into the finite nuts and bolts of what I found. As a layman who was tasked by a major telecommunications company to aggregate information and put it in some format a fellow layman can understand, from what I've been able to ascertain, what I've been able to find out, it's shocking what I've found.
I have to admit, the information that you have sent to Dead Cat and myself is very disconcerting at best and nefarious at worst.
Yeah, there's technology is like any other tool. It's can be good, could be bad. It just depends on the user of the tool. And I think for my own comfort with what I've been able to uncover, it's simply that, hoping that when this is all said and done, the people who have control over this technology want humans in the future versus robots or automatons, meaning humans in a biological android kind of a capacity.
And now, how recently was it that you worked for the telecom company?
Was separated October of last year.
So it's very recent.
Yep, at 18 years. I started at 18 years old, deployed with the military, came back, reintegrated, and that's it. 18 years. I have nothing at this point.
That's really a shame. Which branch did you serve in?
Army. It was military police. I went in at 17 and a half, turned 18 in basic training, 21 overseas in Iraq, and that was the extent of my time.
Well, thank you for your service, sir.
Absolutely. Appreciate your service as well. So,
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think anybody who's interested in service, whether it be military or Peace Corps or anything of that nature, the time in service in an organization that to some extent requires a necessity to work together, those skills are invaluable going forward in life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As you know, I served 14 years in the United States Navy, and my background is in electronics. I was a aircraft aviation electronics technician, but the aircraft I served on was quite extraordinary when it came to the electronics. Let's just leave it at that. But that was 30 years ago. And, we didn't have the computers and the technology that we have now. And so when I look at what we were capable of 30 years ago and war game it out, and then you add in the idea that, they have been pigeonholing a lot of technology, keeping it top secret, national security and all that. Now, I understand that a lot of these patents that you have found, and you've sent us copies of the patents and what the general gist of the new invention was. Have you been able to verify whether or not these are patents that have been recently declassified and allowed to be released to the public?
No, I can't definitively say one versus another is something that's been released for that reason. What I can tell you is I've searched similar search terms over the last 9 months, and I've yielded different results in the recent past versus last year, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, of all of the stuff that you have uncovered here, I know that my DM list from you is just it's incredible, the amount of stuff.
It's awesome. I cannot even begin to, to say that I understand a tenth of what you sent me. I know that it's disturbing at the very least. On YouTube, one of the YouTubers says, he says 5G is a phased array microwave radar and target acquisition system, a weapon. Is this your read on it?
It's a lot of things, but everything that we have, as we know, modern telecommunications currently is phased array. That's how beaming or beam forming and beam steering, all those things require phased array apparatus. So phased array isn't new with 5G. What's really new with 5G is the density. And what I mean by density is right now you have a single cell tower or 4 or 5 cell towers that provide service to 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers. 5G postulates that there will be an antenna approximately every 850 feet, not every mile or 5 miles or 10 miles.
Well, when you when you understand phased array, okay, first off, the antenna, when you're getting into 5G, one of the things is the what is the frequency range that 5G actually operates at?
They're indicating that it's millimeter wave frequency. So what I've been able to find is 1.9 gigahertz at the access layer. So we're talking antenna to device, and then 3 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz, other various ranges for the backhaul. So antenna to antenna, antenna to tower, and other combinations thereof.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just for the audience sake, and this is something I've dealt with. I've built antennas for my ham radio, and then my time in the Navy, I dealt a lot with different types of antennas. And what you have with a phased array, picture a flat hub in a circular thing. Let's say that hub is, let's just say, 5 inches wide. Okay. The wavelength for a frequency of that that high a frequency is going to be, like you said, millimeters. Okay. So if you wanted to build a full wave antenna, the full wave is actually the same physical length as the wave. So if you're talking a millimeter wave, signal going out through the air, and you built a full wave antenna for that signal, it would only have to be a millimeter in length. All right, or effective electrical length, if you're talking electronics. And so, if you can imagine on a round hub, 5 inches wide, that thing covered all the way around completely with all these little teeny tiny millimeter wave antennas. And you could actually have, the antenna can be built to both transmit and receive, or you could have alternating receive and transmit antennas all the way around this thing. So you can have literally thousands of these little antennas, each one fed individually. All right. And so, and then through circuitry, you can energize any portion or the entire thing if you wanted an omnidirectional signal all the way around this hub. Or you could, scope it down, and this would be something where you could actually, if you wanted to beam a signal into an area, you could use all these little antennas, and the collective power going out. Granted, these are tiny little antennas, And so they're going to be built of very small materials and things like that. So you're not going to be transmitting huge amounts of power, but you're going to be concentrating several synchronized signals through, let's say a block of antennas. Maybe that's a couple of hundred or whatever of these little antennas, and you can basically define where you're going to go. That can be used for transmit. It can also be used as a way of let's clear out the clutter. Let's listen very closely in this area. So that is the whole idea of phased array, and so there's actually a pretty good diagram here of a phased array. I'll throw it up on the screen here.
Okay, when you're talking about, before you go any further with that, when you're talking about a full wave, you're talking about the sine wave that you see when they do the
Correct. Yes.
so the full wave would be from point zero, which is the baseline, to the top, all the way to the bottom, and then back up to the baseline again. That's considered the full wave.
Correct.
All right, just to clarify that.
Okay. Now, TMC, are you okay with the way I described that?
Yeah, and the diagram you have up there is a good one. I was able to see one similar to that, I believe, on Wikipedia. And Dead Cat's summation of a complete wave is true. That's the reason it goes up and down. The sine wave is because you're making a full circle, you're cutting it in half and graphing it out in a straight line. That's really why that is the way it is. And then one complete cycle is a hertz. And when we talk about millimeter wave, what that means is that the distance to create one wavelength is only a millimeter in length versus a microwave, which is a longer wave. So
Correct. Yeah.
the reason the 5G requires spacing at 850 feet is because millimeter waves don't penetrate efficiently like a radio wave. So an AM broadcast tower or television broadcast tower, one will provide service to a small town, small city. A few provide service to a large city. That's because the waves penetrate dense material because they're a longer wave. The millimeter waves are a much more energetic wave, and their deflection, refraction, absorption, all of those things, all those characteristics are very different when you compare them to a longer wave.
Okay, let me ask you that. That brings to mind a question. Does that mean that the short, the length of the wave and its penetrating capability, does that mean that it's easier to shield against?
I'm going to give you my best hypothesis. The answer is yes and no. It depends what you're trying to do.
Let's
Waves.
say aluminum foil. Let's just be the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists that they call us, and let's just say aluminum foil, a single sheet of heavy duty aluminum foil. Will that stop the waves?
No.
Because they within a close enough proximity to those waves, especially if you're talking about we're talking now, we're basically talking a grid 850 feet square down each side, right?
Understood.
Well,
Understood.
I'm asking TMC.
Oh, sorry.
So
yeah, it's 850 feet in approximation. So a standard downtown block where you can walk a city block, for example, you're going to have antennas that potentially could make contact with your device, you're going to have multiple antennas that are going to have the capacity to make contact with your device. And I use the term device, but you could interchange that term with your body.
So you're basically surrounded 360 degrees. So no matter which way you go, that signal is going to find its way to you.
Yeah. And to take it a step further, one of the major components of 5G that is going to be a requirement is what they call device to device communication, which is part of the reason why they're pushing for internet standardization. Device to device communication will enable algorithms to send and receive electromagnetic energy to and from your device next to your body for someone else's service request.
So basically, you're carrying around a repeater.
Or effectively, what you're saying is we are the repeaters.
Well, the device. Okay, so your cell phone. If we are walking together, and we're separated by maybe 10 feet, and I'm in a blind spot, but what would happen is if I'm trying to get a hold of somebody, my device would see your device, and your device has connectivity to the system. It would use your device and route the signal out to the network. Am I correct in that, TMC?
That's right.
Okay.
It's a critical piece to make the Internet of Things, Internet of Everything function. For example, let's take the connected car. Let's take the automated car. And the implications of a 3,000-pound piece of mass moving through space. If you didn't have these additional provisions in place, if that vehicle hit a dead spot and wasn't able to find a signal strength fast enough, you potentially have, so from a large macro scale, when you're thinking about having automated vehicles in a city, if you didn't have device to device communication, it would fall on its face. That business model wouldn't work.
So we're talking about a 3,000 pound, 70-mile-an-hour bullet with no direction.
Exactly. It'd be like a musket versus rifling in a barrel.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, disturbing too.
Here's the real rub that I have with it personally. I don't relish or like the idea that rulings are put in place that enable a corporation to radiate me for someone else's service, for someone else's network request. Just because I happen to have a phone that supports those frequencies, the bandwidth, the throughput, I happen to be on a network that has connectivity. Let's say you use service provider A versus service provider B. Service provider B doesn't have a solid network in the area that you're in. In order to get around that, they could use service provider A billing on the back end because they have mechanisms in place at the points to understand what service provider you have at the device level. So Sprint versus Verizon, Sprint versus your local PCS, whatever it is, right? Boost Mobile, whatever.
Right.
If one versus the other has a solid network footprint, in order to provide solid network coverage for the other guy, there are arrangements made at a higher level, what they call the aggregate level, that enables cross-network traffic. And so when you take the two concepts of cross-network traffic and device-to-device communication, you allow, meaning it doesn't matter what device I have, I'm going to have some kind of coverage. Granted, you might not have as good a coverage as in an area that your paid network subscription has a good footprint, but you'd still get something. Versus today, if I don't have coverage with my service provider, I don't have service.
Correct. Right.
You could see how detrimental that would be if the car that you're driving went out of network coverage, for example.
Yeah, that would be a very good thing.
Comfortable idea.
If they had been able to continue this out, I have a feeling that we wouldn't have different service providers. It would all actually, because they're moving towards a quasi, a socialistic deal where it would all be government. It would all be one provider, and thereby,
you're dancing around what they are tossing around as the Internet Bill of Rights in order to substantiate network homogeneity, homogenized network for critical components. And then you can define now and later what those components are. Cars is the first obvious one. Emergency response networks are another obvious one. But as time goes on, we all know how legislation works. It's inevitably going to change. And so we're going to go there anyway. I mean, if 5G is going to come out and device-to-device communication, which is a critical underpinning or cornerstone, if you will, of 5G, if this is going to move forward, there has to be some continuity so that you don't have latencies that create problems, serious social problems, if you will.
right. Yeah, you want some standardization.
What does that look like?
I'm sorry, we missed that last part there.
Yeah, we're on the same path. I was saying the question is, what does that ultimately look like? And you're saying it's some type of standardization. But with the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years, it seems that the majority of those large overarching decisions are not made with the best interests of the little guy, so to speak, in mind.
Right.
So this is effectively the electronic version of single payer.
No.
Putting it in a more political context.
I think they're going to they'll monetize it, meaning whoever has the most network density is going to get paid the most. But you're right. I understand. I think more so after saying what I just said, what you meant. There will be regulation requirements that sort of force the market to move and to take a shape of a certain way.
Right. All right. And now, of all the stuff that you've discovered, and I'm looking at just a few of the things that you have DM'd to me, and I know Deadcat has the same stuff. Anything there that you can get excited about? Do you think is really cool tech? If you want to name one of those articles, we can open it up and kind of dig through it for a few minutes. Is there any one of those articles that you'd like to, kind of dig through there, TMC?
I'll leave that to you guys. Everything that I've sent you had the initial shock and awe impact when I came across the information, to the extent that I felt compelled to share. Over the course of the last, most particularly probably 15 days, but it's been 60 or so that I was dribbling information. It's been random and to some extent circular. If you go back, you'll see there are days where focus is on antennas versus patents versus, subsets of patents, electromagnetic neural interface patents versus tech patents. The ones that interested me as of late were the cosmetics and the correlations with the Department of Energy patent, and the Apple EarPod and the Apple their watch. It's like a Fitbit. I don't have one. I was always leery, especially when somebody at work, when they first came out, had one, and I was intrigued, and so I looked at it and saw the electrodes on the back, and I just didn't really have a warm and fuzzy about that.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I've got this article. It's Apple Insider AirPods 2. Could be a greater health monitoring device than just a blah. Let me open that article up. We'll put it up on the screen for everybody. And we'll kind of go through this one here and talk about it since you brought it up. All right. Now you can see the screen on the YouTube there, TMC?
Now, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to log back in like everybody else, but yeah, I can see you at this point.
Okay. Now you should be seeing the share screen with the article up there. And there we go.
Delay. Just so you know, there's a delay between Zoom and YouTube. There, it
Thanks
should
for
be up
reminding.
now. I'm seeing it on YouTube now.
All right. So we've got AirPods 2. Could be a greater health monitoring device than the Apple Watch. Okay. And the sheer number of monitoring benefits you can get from a device in your ear means that the forthcoming in quotes, AirPods 2, close quote, may have a big future in Apple's health plans. And there is still more. Wait, there's more.
Oh, wait.
They may be able to do. You know that Apple is going to release an updated AirPods 2 at some point. If you just got one of them, one of the existing model, though, then you typically like them so much that it's hard to imagine how they could be improved. And if you've had them since their launch late in 2016, then you're probably wishing that their battery charge had stayed as great as it was. The only thing we know for sure is that AirPods 2 will have a wireless charging base. But there's so much more that Apple appears to be planning. Through the company's latest hiring and its filed patents, you can get an idea of where the AirPods are going. So much of this is to do with medical functions, though, that it looks like Apple is concentrating on health at least as much as it is, say, audio quality. Maybe we'll get the rumored, "Hey Siri" audio feature next. But there are a startling number of things Apple could do with the device stuck in your ear. You want to expound on that, TMC?
Oh, that sounds like good stuff. Let me put that right next to my brain.
Yeah, we can expound on that. I pulled the patent for the EarPods and the wired headphones and the Apple Watch. And between the three, there are a couple things that were of interest. And basically, they're putting sensors in these devices that utilize skin connectivity to understand things like blood flow, oxygen content, and other, and they even say this in the patent, not limited to something to that effect, other components, other items to be monitored. And as we evolve, so to speak, or as technology miniaturizes, you're going to see what they call EEG, electroencephalogram technology, integrated into these devices.
Hey, DC, your keyboard is really loud.
I wasn't typing, bud.
No, DC, his keyboard is.
Oh, sorry. People call me TC sometimes, so they sound the same. The Delta and the Tango.
Oh, sorry about that.
So the ear pods, if you go into the patent, have a sensor module in there that makes contact or is near enough to the skin to provide quote unquote health feedback. And everything that I've been able to find of interest that relates to technology interfacing with biology has been typically in the health related fields and the marketing related fields. Those two fields seem to be the major overarching categories that have patented items of note into the commercial sphere, the for-profit sphere.
So when you're talking about that, you're talking about, they could, let's say, they detect that your blood oxygen level is low. They might recommend certain products in targeted advertising to you or something like that. Is
Yep.
that kind of what you're talking about there?
That's one tangent. It's
Right.
You could get 10 people in a room and come up with an invariable amount of possible solutions, marketing, profitable solutions. When you talk about taking biofeedback off of an individual, and then let's look at it from a corporate perspective. It's one individual and the next individual and the next individual, and next thing you know, you have a neighborhood, then you have a community, and then you can start breaking things down into demographics. You can start breaking things down into all kinds of different things. And that's where you get into big data. And big data is really the future honeypot. That's the money maker going forward, with Internet of Things and sensors going in everywhere. Data aggregation, data points provide the ability for people with the right computing power and the right software to be able to make more effective predictive modeling. And if you can make more effective predictive modeling, you spend money more efficiently, you research and develop more efficiently, and you can, for lack of a better term, socially engineer more efficiently, which goes back into the marketing more so.
Right. Well, and
That's question.
Various component.
Go ahead, DC.
I have a question regarding, what you're discussing right now is the ability to target in terms of an advertising sort of situation where you're basically the transmitting outfit is, they're receiving your bio data input and then transmitting outward a solution to it that has a commercial value. My question is this: if in fact they are able to manipulate your sensory inputs or your sensory outputs in any way, how much of this is impelling, as in, just offering you this subliminal sort of advertising, and how much can they compel you? In other words, how much can they actually push you toward taking or going and finding that product? I guess, how much can they weaponize this is the question.
Oh, if you want my opinion, I think
How much have they weaponized it?
wow, that's you will get a different answer based on who you talk to. What I can tell you from my own research is if neural interfacing patents, electromagnetic technology that's integrated into TVs, cell phones, computers, in order to project electromagnetic energy, in order to understand how a person is feeling or how a person reacts to visual stimuli, to auditory stimuli. If those things are legal and patented and therefore deployed amongst the masses, now you can get into you can get into all kinds of different scenarios as it relates to what's really going on when you're watching a commercial on TV. Why do people typically get hungry and go get dessert or a snack after watching a couple fast food commercials in between a sitcom or a drama? There, you can go down that rabbit trail and theorize the application. My opinion is where we're going, you will have electromagnetic stimuli applied in your sphere, whether it be your house, in your car, at work, or with the 5G, every 850 feet, even out in public spaces, you will be potentially exposed to a neurological interface. At the beginning, it will be for observation. And my opinion, we're already there.
Yeah,
In the future,
that seems logical.
you're talking about suggestibility, and the potential for quantum computing, which we're going to kind of divulge off into that. If you have quantum computing capacity and you integrate that into the internet, and you have 5G, which offers multi-gigabit service, multi-gigabit circuits in a point-to-point architecture, you could potentially steer entire movements, which gives rise to all kinds of possibilities.
Not good
What
ones.
would you do? Well, yeah, let's go on a wild, crazy, what if hypothetical scenario. Let's say 5G is put out there, no regulation, no nothing, and let's say that Hillary won, not Trump. If the technology exists to have a unique neural interface, a unique brain to computer interface through an electromagnetic medium with every single person in a community, what does that do to votes? What does that do to agitation? What does that do to protests? What could you do if you had Antifa and the Proud Boys, for example, facing off, and you have the ability to form point-to-point connections with people? Guns at that point are irrelevant.
Yeah, it's suddenly, zombie apocalypse time.
They don't put that stuff out there by accident. You're absolutely right, DC. That's it. And they used this technology in the first Gulf War. I mean, you could find articles online. They used directed energy weapons to interface with the brains of the enemy, to make them docile, to make them give up, basically make them a less efficient fighting force. And this was back in the 90s.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
No, as a matter of fact, we discuss that quite frequently on our show. about how the technology that we see and the technology that they have are decades, if not, half a century apart.
The scary part of
Yeah.
this is something that I've been I haven't said it that often. I've kind of alluded to it at a couple of different points. We do have our Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms. My contention has been, honestly, if we can have all the guns in the world, but if they've got this kind of technology and it's weaponized, our guns aren't going to matter.
Once the metaphorical cataclysm occurs, I'll agree with you. What we're dancing around, quite frankly, is whether or not you truly have free will. Are your thoughts, are your impulses, are your emotional responses, your emotional feelings,
Mm-hmm.
are they truly your own, or are they a combination of your own and some form of synthetic stimuli?
Right.
Okie doke. Well, here we're getting into something we've been discussing on this show, on subsequent or previous shows, several times, and that is discernment, and in this case, discernment directed towards self. Whether you are able to determine whether or not you are in control of your own faculties. That would be probably discernment on a level we all really, really need to work on.
Well, one of the things is too, we get ideas that pop into our head because we consider ourselves free thinkers. We are suspicious. We see something, and just like TMC, noticed a few things, started asking some questions, and then saw some more things, and then got a reaction to his questions that kind of solidified a lot of your reason for being suspicious. Am I correct there, Team C?
Yes, in a linear sense.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, it's when here's what I see. If you have AI that has the ability to have a point-to-point connection with every single person in the community,
Could I
with
throw
the
a timeout
ability
in
to
here?
run,
Could I
yeah,
throw a timeout in here? You've used that term several times, and for the purpose of clarifying it to everybody here, including me, quite frankly, what do you exactly mean by point to point?
point-to-point means a direct connection, meaning
As in antenna to me, or
yeah,
antenna or
or computer algorithm to you. Let's look at it like this. Right now, you, me, Thumper, we have a point to multi-point conversation. I am speaking, and it's transmitting to your computer, transmitting to Thumper's computer, and then it's going out across the web, right?
correct,
If I just called you on your phone,
presumably, depending on if
right,
you're watching the numbers.
right. If I was just to call you on your phone, and we're not online, we're not broadcasting, it's just you and me having a conversation, that's a point to point connection. It's a direct connection.
Okay,
So you have
never mind the electronics in between.
yeah, right, exactly. You have a point to you have a point to multi-point, and you have a multi-point to multi-point type of architecture, if you will. And
Network.
point to point is simply a personal connection, a personal relationship. So when you think about AI and you think about the ability with the bandwidth speeds that are going to be possible with 5G. Think about having a personal relation with AI, and you will fall right into the same vein as what all of these billionaire moguls are talking about with neural uplinks, neural interfaces, all that stuff. When they're talking about jacking your brain into the, you will have the ability to have a point to multi-point conversation. Let's say let's take this setting right here, Patriot Soapbox. But rather than have a computer and a phone and a modem and all this stuff, imagine if it all just happened straight into your brain. You wouldn't have to talk.
Singularity.
It's a single, yeah, you could boil it down to a singularity, but again,
Yeah.
it depends who you ask. If you ask me, the singularity isn't one machine or one group of networked machines, quantum computers, that run and manage everything. It would be a quantum network that allowed all of the end users to manage themselves, not one, for lack of a better term, consciousness, because they say that AI is going to be conscious if it's not already. It's not one consciousness driving everybody's behavior. It should be a network that is capable of allowing the end users to have their own experience, but truly an organic experience, not one that's simulated. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of Anthony Patch. You ever heard of Anthony Patch?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of him. Yes.
He's way into quantum computing, modifying DNA, CERN, the portal, all of that. Basically bordering around interdimensionalism. I don't really want to go there. It's kind of outside of the scope, but
Yeah, he's been interviewed on our channel a few times.
yes, very profound impact on the direction that I went for a period of months after listening to him on this channel. But after listening to some of the research that he did and understanding a little more about quantum computing, what it's capable of, and then learning about what they call human bond communication, which is digitizing all five senses, transmitting those senses over the internet and allowing them to be transposed onto another human over the internet. It's not too hard to make the jump that a quantum computer or a group of quantum computers can have a unique experience with every single person who's connected to the internet, and have every single person who's connected to the internet have the simulation that they're having their own unique experience, when in fact there is a higher order of management. And we know how much the control freaks like to control. So if you had unlimited resources and you were able to run scenarios forwards and backwards an infinite number of times in the matter of a few seconds, you can imagine what the possibilities are. The missing link at this point, in my view, and I'm just a layman, don't get me wrong. The missing link, in my view, at this point is the lack of architecture to create the bandwidth needed for a personal experience with the internet, a point-to-point communication with the internet.
Do you think this 5G dissemination that they want with the 850 feet between transmitters is going to create that architecture sufficiently?
Yes,
Or
and
is
the
it
reason why
something
is
bigger?
what I've read is once this architecture is deployed, upgrades are only going to be soft. The hardware will be dispersed and saturated enough such that the upgrades going forward, 6G, whatever G you want to have after that, for the most part are just going to be software upgrades, which means algorithm changes, um, maybe middleware, which is where you go in and you're swapping subcomponents where you're not really replacing a whole antenna, for example, but you go in and you'd swap out a PCI card, and I'm using that term generically. It's not necessarily going to be a PCI card, but
Could
people
be
who
just a
have
little
some
tiny chip. You unplug the old chip and plug the new one in.
bingo. And that's
Or-
middleware, that's firmware.
Mhm.
That's really what it's a unique piece of proprietary something that has software and hardware integrated. And that'll be a major upgrade in the future. Minor upgrades are going to be software, where they can, like you were talking about earlier with the phased array and using a computer to manage each antenna, send or receive, transmit or receive independently. The better that software gets, the more bandwidth capacity, the more point-to-point connections, the more network reliability, if you will, they're going to be able to create with just software upgrades. And that's where we get into, we've talked about the antennas and 850 feet. And for those that have been on the channel for a while, know that they've talked extensively on this channel about 20,000 plus satellites going up in the air for 5G. That's all hardware. That's all part of it. We haven't really talked about the software side, which is what they call a cloud radio antenna network or a cognitive radio antenna network. If you search CRAN, CRAN, you'll get one of those two. Typically, you'll see cloud radio antenna network. If you search for cognitive radio antenna network, you get more into the technical side where it starts discussing different AI theories and then typically provide you with algorithm subsets, of which I don't understand. I mean, it's math far beyond what I've ever been exposed to, but it's algorithms that run AI specific to managing a radio antenna network. And what that means in simple terms is you have 4 or 5 sensors or 4 or 5 antennas, and every one of them is going to ping a device. It's going to find the best signal strength, network path, and available throughput speed, make a decision, and use that one to create a connection. And that could change every second, every 5 seconds, every minute, based on the movement of the mobile device, based on the number of other devices that want access to that particular node, that particular antenna. A lot of variables come into play. And so when we talk about algorithms and a cognitive radio network, you have multiple variables changing all the time. And they need software to be able to manage that as efficiently as possible. And that will be the future upgrades once the hardware, once the physical architecture is in place. And that's what they're pushing for right now.
I got a question for you, and this is something that we've talked about on the show here, and that is, we no longer have foil backed insulation. Now, when I was a kid, all insulation, the fiberglass insulation was foil backed. We also had lead based paints in our homes and things like that. Do you think that the elimination of the foil backed insulation and the getting rid of the lead paints and things like that, because all of those things would have a tendency to be a problem in this, RF bathed environment that they're making for us.
Aluminum siding.
Aluminum siding, things like that. What any thoughts on that? Have you gone down that rabbit hole at any length?
That's an excellent observation. I do recall hearing that hypothesis in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably a decade or more younger than you are. So I was raised in an environment where, came up through the 80s and the 90s, and, lead paint was bad because it made you sick, and that's why we have unleaded gas and blah, blah, blah. But as I've grown older, what I've seen is everything that, I shouldn't say everything, most things that are legislated into law or color of law, meaning rule,
Correct. Yeah.
for the
Regulation.
sake, right, for the sake of safety, usually has some other application. And
By application, you mean some other intent, some other
purpose.
purpose.
Yes, exactly right.
Oh, yeah. That's if we go back to a couple of the quotes when they were, I think it was President Taft, when they were bringing in the IRS and the income tax. Government never on the surface tells you what they're doing. They tell you what they want you to hear, but what they're actually doing, they don't actually tell you. There's always another side to the to what they're doing, and they don't do anything that's not in their favor. That was almost a paraphrased quote from President Taft when they were bringing in the IRS. We know how successful that's been.
I have a question related to something that I directly experience here. I'm sure Thumper directly experiences there. Anybody who has multiple screens, multiple computers operating at the same time. And I have noticed that there is a delay from one computer to the other. Might only be a second, might be a half second, might be a tenth of a second, but there's a difference between one input, even on the same router, on the same modem, coming through the computers. The computers operate slightly differently in terms of frequency, and so you get this, I guess you could call it a dissonance rather than a resonance. You're not getting the exact transmission in exactly the same moment of time. Is this an issue that they're trying to overcome with having this full Internet of Things and this full 850-foot grid that they're putting in, so that they can transmit at the same time, at the same rate, at all points, all at once?
Not for you and me.
So they want
You want me
to.
to elaborate on that?
The dissonance, is that part of is that an actual factor in the weaponization?
No, it sounds like what you're talking about is, there's a lot of things that occur in order to see a video on your device, for example. You have timing and clock speeds in your device. You have a session that's set up between you and the router. Then you have that unique session that goes out over the internet. It may not travel the same path that your other device is traveling, the information to your other device. So there's a lot of other variables there, but you said something that was interesting to me at the end as it relates to having real-time information transfer. And the answer is yes. The goal with fiber optics and then having radio antennas so close to the end devices, the user devices, if you will, is to minimize latency. So if you have a cognitive
That was the
network,
term I was looking for. Yes.
If you have a cognitive network, can think, a network that has cognition, understanding, discernment, if you will. And I use that term euphemistically because humans have discernment. AI it's just a simulation. It's not of this world, so to speak. But if you can transmit information at the speed of light, then it can theoretically go around the world, what, 3.5 times in a second? So having a data center in the United States, there's a few major data centers in the United States, and they're strategically located in order to manage network traffic. It's all part of the internet kill switch. It's been going in for the last 10, 20 years. But if you have a fiber optic network and an access layer network that is 1,000 feet or less, you would have, theoretically, an instant real-time connectivity.
Virtual zero latency.
Zero. Granted, you still have all of the electronics, all the servers, all the other components, right, that are in place, that have been in place for however long since they were installed. As we move forward in time, those will be upgraded. Before I left my place of employment, I saw photon switching pieces of equipment made by a company by the name of Sienna, and they switched photons omnidirectionally, meaning they could send a photon in the device, which is something that looks like a rack, right? Server rack. One server rack could replace an entire building worth of electronics, number one. Number two, it could have upwards of 1,000 connections, and it can send photons, light, because it's a fiber optic system, to any one of those, which is a remarkable advancement from where we were. And where we were is, I have fiber in, I have fiber out. I can go one direction or the other. I can't go up, down, left, right, or any degree or minute of angle, so to speak. I can only go in one of two directions, forward or backwards, based on a point-to-point connection. The newer equipment sends information direction based on the number of connections that you can have. So it miniaturizes and it speeds up the network traffic immensely. And as we move forward in time, say again?
Speed of light.
Yes, the goal is everything fiber, and everything that's not fiber, it's going to be wireless. All wireless, all IP based, internet protocol based. Even some of the stuff I've read, even out of NASA, talks about Ethernet being the standard or a standard for network traffic, even in the satellites in space. And what that does is it creates a universal network protocol, if you will, from space all the way down to your computer or your phone or your TV.
Okay.
TCP.
Yeah. Go ahead and finish your thought, but I've got some another aspect I'd like to bring into our conversation here.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the last things that you had dropped on us here was, and you mentioned it, one of the first things that you talked about in your opening statements there was these polymers for personal care and cosmetics, and just where that might take some of this, because that's some pretty scary stuff right there, because now you've gone past the point of needing a device. Do you want to kind of open up on that?
Sure. I was researching patents, came across Department of Energy, and looked up nano or some simple term like that, and came across a copolymer patent. And in the patent, if I recall, I don't have it in front of me, it had all kinds of different chemical combinations and the naming conventions for them. And just from being somewhat conscientious about what I put on my body, I was shocked to recall that a lot of these things that I was reading in this patent were familiar to me. And I had done some research a few months ago regarding cosmetics and found that paper, which I think I sent to you as well.
I got up on the screen right now. Is this the paper you're talking about?
All right.
The polymers for personal care and cosmetics overview? Did we lose our caller? Hope not.
Sorry, I took my hand off the space bar.
Oh, okay. That push to talk is a pain in the butt when you're talking for a while, doesn't it?
All right. Yeah. Yes, I believe that's the document. There's some correlations with the terminologies in there. So what you'll find in that document is what they use for stabilizers, what they use for volumizers, what they use for smoothers, those kinds of things are copolymers. And they do a couple of things. They provide skin elasticity, hydration, they improve shelf life, all of the things that a manufacturing company of cosmetic products would want. They correlate, however, with the chemical components that I found in this patent, which if you read in the patent, it does things like filter light, transmit electricity, all kinds of other things that the Department of Energy would use these copolymers for infrared absorption or other types of industrial applications. But the fact that the same naming conventions are also found in basically anything you buy at CVS or Walgreens.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really concerning to me. And I immediately went to, I'm constantly bathing in electromagnetic radiation, constantly. If this stuff has multiple applications, what's going to be allowed through FDA? What's going to be allowed through all of the channels needed, right, to get past all the bureaucratic tape, so to speak, to get something to market?
Well, let me just
go for it.
Let me just read a couple of the first couple of paragraphs here in this thing to kind of give folks an idea. Polymers are routinely used in many personal care and cosmetic products. The applications take advantage of the various properties of these polymers to impart unique benefits to their formulations. The range of properties is as varied as the class of polymers that have been utilized. Using polymers, cosmetic chemists can create high-performance products. Broad spectrums of polymers, natural polymers, synthetic polymers, organic polymers, as well as silicones, are used in a wide range of cosmetic and personal care products as film formers, emulsifiers, thickeners, modifiers, protective barriers, and as aesthetic enhancers. This book is based on an international symposium on polymers for cosmetics and personal care held at the 244th National ACS meeting in Philadelphia on August 22 of 2012. The aim of this book is to cover the many facets of polymers used in cosmetics and personal care products and to bring together researchers from industries and academic disciplines from different countries. This overview chapter provides a brief description of each chapter presented in this book and is meant to provide the reader with an insight to the exciting developments described throughout. Okay. So, basically what they're talking about is using all these different types of polymers and different things. But what you're saying, TMC, is these polymers not only provide, the film formers, emulsifiers, thickeners, modifiers, protective barriers, and aesthetic enhancers in a cosmetic product. These also have an electromagnetic property to them when you combine them in certain fashion, as you might in a personal care product. That also has use as far as being reactive in an electromagnetic environment. Am I correct there?
Yes, that's what I'm postulating.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you
And
have components in the patent real quick, and then you can, when you get there in the article, things like C2 to C30 alkyl, C3 to C30. You've got I'm going to read it straight out of the patent. In an embodiment, for example, the first wedge group comprises an aromatic or aliocyclic fused ring structure, such as substituted or unsubstituted adamantine, and then you get into all kinds of weird words that nobody can pronounce. All the stuff of a label, and you're like, what is this stuff? Polyethylene glycol, borneol, or a group derived from any of these. I'm paraphrasing at this point. Silane, siloxane, silesquioxane, OR37, C2, C30, Y1, Y5, or C1 to C30. These things, when I read this, if you look at the back of any product in Bath and Body Works, for example, you're going to find C something. And what that is it's carbon, whatever, some derivative of carbon, a polymer of carbon. And that's just one example. The other words in the patent that were alarming to me are things like the polyethylene glycol and generic terms like or a group derived from any of these, meaning that these are examples that they put in a patent, but they're not exclusive. They leave it open-ended. And what I'm postulating is that when you apply these things to your skin, they're absorbed into your skin and they sit there at one layer or another inside of your skin. These things interact with electromagnetics, and electromagnetics aren't just radio frequencies, microwave frequencies, millimeter frequencies. They also interact with light. Light is also on the electromagnetic spectrum. It's also a fundamental component of network connectivity when you talk about the internet. There's something called Wi-Fi, which is a very common research term. You can learn about how they're able to send communications over light, particularly with infrared light. It's a component of Wi-Fi. The infrared organization and the visible light communication organization have converged into one. And infrared communication has been around since the remote control, that we all can sort of get a timeline established. It's probably way before that, but remote control has been around longer than I think I've been alive, and that's infrared communication. Let me scroll down here and see if in the patent.
if you have a page number in here, I can try to follow along with you here on the screen.
In the article or the paper or in the patent?
Well, I'm still in the article. Are you in the patent?
You type in
Is it not in one of the links that you've sent to us?
Oh yeah.
Okay, let me find the patent here.
Yeah, stand by. I'm doing the same.
Okay. Okay. Let me drop this share. And let's see. Is this the Department of Energy patent?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. And which of these articles is the one you're looking at there, TNC? The polymer-based photonic crystals, or is it, if you go to references there? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You could you can search it with the polyphotonic crystals, and you'll find there's a certain paragraph that stood out to me that I sent over in Discord. It's what I was reading off of earlier. That discusses the energetic component of it. And it says the ability to tune the spacing of the wedge type block copolymers through any external stimuli, such as a temperature, electric field gradient, solvation, or stretching, yields a dynamic photonic filter. This could be employed as an optical switch. The ability to remove one of the incorporated polymers and infill with another material, such as a metal, affords the ability to template complex nanostructures, such as metamaterials. So let your mind race on that for a minute. Does a piece of steak stay a piece of steak once it's in your body?
No, it broken
Doesn't.
down and
Right.
Short answer is no.
Yep. It gets broken down into different pieces and it converts into other components in your body so that your body can use it. That's
Right.
what the body does. And that's just the digestive system.
It's
Sunlight.
it's
Sunlight.
your body's version of nano manufacturing.
In a sense, yes, it breaks it down into micro components so that they can be reassimilated into something useful for the body. So I'll read this piece of it again. The ability to remove one of the incorporated polymers and infill with another material, such as a metal, affords the ability to template complex nanostructures, such as metamaterials. My mind goes to vaccines. My mind goes to chemtrails. My mind goes to general contamination in the environment. Your body, when you take a shower, absorbs 7 to 8 cups of water. If you don't have a shower filter and you're just showering in municipal water, that's going through the same layers that this stuff is put. You put the stuff on your skin, it's going through the same exact layers. What's happening in there? Again, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a biologist. I couldn't give you the chemistry equations to tell you exactly what's happening, but I do know that the body changes structures, changes molecules. That's what it does. That's how we regenerate, and it's just the way we're built. So I'm going to keep going real quick in this, and I'll finish up here. We've demonstrated the use of these self-assembled polymer wedge-type block copolymers as photonic crystals. In addition, these photonic crystals can be employed as frequency selective filters. Example, as assembled, as a band reject filter or polarizers in the UV, visible or infrared parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. So let's talk about suntan lotion. How does that work? Probably kind of like this. This has many potential applications in optics as well as in thermal management via IR reflective paints. So they're writing this in the scope of it being an industrial application, industrial patent, which is fine. Stuff probably works great in an industrial environment. I want it in my body if it can filter light and interact with the electromagnetic spectrum, because that sort of goes into the realm of some of those Air Force patents that you have that discuss object awareness and basically radar that's able to be performed using AM, FM, television, radio towers, and cell towers.
Sort of the electronic version of remote viewing.
You broke up at the end. Sort of the electronic version
of remote viewing. Discerning
Yeah.
what something is from a distance when you can't actually see it.
That's right. It's that's the first step, right? If you think about understanding your environment, the first thing you want to do is be able to see, be able to map it, be able to plot it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
The next step is to interact with it. And at this point, the architecture, the hardware is not in place to interact to the level of or specificity that is desired. And
Well,
that's where
and that's where you get into things like the nanotechnology, being able to at a molecular level design a fully functioning machine at the molecular level that can cooperate and communicate with other like machines, and basically they could come together to create a much more complex machine. Each one, just like the cells in your body, each one has a particular function, and it works in conjunction with the rest. But they're doing it with a synthetically, basically a man-made structure that can be designed to have a specific function. And when you get to that, I mean, this stuff, it's unlimited. Like we were talking this morning when we had our phone call, the paint in your house, the clothes you wear, just anything could have these little nano machines in them, and depending on how they are structured, like as in a computer chip, thousands and thousands and thousands of functions could be built into one small little tiny molecular sized nanochip.
Effectively programmed like DNA.
all of what you said is true, and you as well, DC. I've seen documents discussed nanotech in patents that have DNA in the patent as well, and the self-assembling structure are they're there. We live in that world today. We are there.
Mm-hmm.
So all the stuff we see on TV that seems sci-fi, it may not be in the real world exactly as portrayed on TV, but they didn't come up with that on their own. We live in a society where art is imitating life, and or at least that's how they make it, and they want us to imitate art, and that's why I think it's so deformed and misformed.
Mm-hmm.
And so disruptive to, but we have, and they're all here. Patents are here. Nanotech that is put into vaccinations, nanotech that is put into, like you said, clothing. It's put into cosmetics. It's put into food. That is genetic engineering. You don't engineer outside of the nano or the micro level. I mean, it's just, that's not what you can't. That's the size or the specificity that you have to be at that scale to make those types of, and we've been there for 20 or 30 years. And
Yeah, well, and you're talking about the scalability of it. You couldn't do this when it took a building the size of a Sears department store full of computers in order to send somebody to the moon. But now,
right.
We're down to the point where the computational power that was once in that building I just described is now it's on a computer chip that's smaller than this thing. I mean, look at this thing. This is 8 gigabytes of memory right here. And you've got this guy. There's 64 gigabytes of memory right there. All right. 64 gigabytes of memory right there. And that's that's old technology, basically.
Yeah, that's Stone Age compared to what you're talking.
Yeah.
You're talking molecular level programming. That's Stone Age comparatively.
The thing is, just for us to handle the stuff or to deal with it, you're going to have to build a handle that, or so. I mean, and that's where you get to the point where it is so small that it will have to be built and programmed to put itself into place, and then to basically work autonomously. It has to work itself into the network, and it's going to have to have that connectivity, because we won't be physically able to. There's no tweezers. There's nothing small enough for us to actually. Oh, we plug that in here. No, you can't do that. So it's going to have that connectivity in order to just be there and be incorporated into the network, so to speak.
The motive power contained within its own programming.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So it's if you can't touch it or manipulate it physically, you have to design it for it to be malleable with energy, because energy doesn't necessarily take up any space. It doesn't have any mass. Technically it does, but it's at the quantum level, which is smaller than the nano level. So it's all around it. We're magnetic. Humans, biological life, we're magnetic. That's just how we're constructed. And the universe is magnetic. Everything is basically oriented around magnetism. And so if you were going to use a universal base or a universal set of rules to be able to manipulate at the nano scale, we're talking about using magnetics of some type. And what we know of at this point is electromagnetic and the other variations that we haven't really gotten into. But I want to reemphasize here at this point that light, visible light, ultraviolet light, infrared light, X-rays, gamma rays, those are all part of the electromagnetic spectrum that interface or interact with biological life and with nanotechnology.
Well, let's put it this way. Everything in the universe is a frequency. It has a frequency to it. It's what it is. How it manifests itself in our reality is what we perceive. Okay, my eyeballs operate in a reality and a frequency range that works with the environment we currently exist in, or the one that we perceive. Our bodies perceive this reality around us because it's built to do that. And but you start changing that that
Environment.
frequency, that environment. Well, not just change the environment. You change, uh, if they say that there's 12 strands of the DNA, and we are only utilizing 2 or 3 strands of the DNA. And so when you start to energize those other strands of DNA, we will be there. We'll see things differently. We'll perceive things differently. We'll have a greater grasp of just what the cosmos is, and that kind of stuff. But that's you've basically changed our hardware and our software by doing that. But everything is a frequency.
On that note,
I have a
let's-
question here that dovetails right in there with the question I actually formulated, at least the first part of this question, back when you were talking about taking a shower and basically if it's not filtered water, you're slathering your entire body with the whatever is in the ambient water. Okay, in other words, you're putting all this stuff that's in the water system already onto your skin. Okay, and you take that and you expand that outward. How much do we adapt to, fight off, or incorporate as useful into our system through our own natural defenses?
wow.
I mean,
From what I've
really, I mean, I know that's a loaded question because it's asking a whole
From
lot
what
of stuff. But isn't this, is this being okay? The real question is it weaponized? And I know I keep going back to the term weaponized, but is it being weaponized to the point where it overcomes and sidesteps our defenses? Or does it work in conjunction with our defenses and thereby either reduces our ability to fight it off or makes it more possible for us to fight it off, depending on the what Thumper is calling the frequencies of these nanoparticles?
Wow. So in my
I know,
view,
big question. Sorry.
sure.
Let him
Our-
answer.
our-
I'm anxious to hear his answer, DC.
our environment is toxic, and so the short answer is it's bioaccumulating in your body. And if the components that you're absorbing in your environment, if your body knows how to process them through the course of evolution, then you'll excrete them through sweat, through urine, feces, respiration, all the ways that we expel. If your body doesn't recognize what it's taking in, either through your skin, through your lungs, or through your mouth, then it's going to store somewhere. Typically, it's in your liver and in your gallbladder. That's where toxins that you ingest, if you will, that's where they go. If you inhale it or it's through your skin, it's just going to sit there because the body doesn't understand what it is, so it doesn't know how to break it down. It doesn't do anything with it. It just stays there. And you get what you call toxic buildup. And the more toxicity you have in your body, the more energy your body is expending managing those toxins, which directly impacts your immune system. Now, going to Thumper's description of everything being energetic and having a frequency and a wavelength, I completely agree with that. Toxins are bad energy, bad wavelengths. But clean, healthy food, clean, healthy water, for example, those are good energies, good wavelengths. We've talked a lot about electromagnetism, a lot about nanotech, and sort of put them in a negative light. Some of the positive components to this technology, it's as many weapons as they have, they also have cures. So if you look up something called electromedicine, you'll find a plethora of information about using vibrations, using frequencies to do things like eradicate cancer, to do things like detoxify the body, to do things like get your your natural resonant frequencies back into alignment. These are well studied and they're suppressed. And the really effective stuff, there was a guy, I don't remember his name, but I think it was in the 20s. He had double-digit number of patients that he cured chronic, you're going to die soon type of diseases using energy, putting them in an environment of the right frequency. And that work is suppressed because it directly goes against big pharma and allopathic medicine, which is taken over.
It also goes against this type of technology that we're talking about here, where you're talking about a synthetic.
It is the yin. It is the yin to the yang,
Right,
brother.
right. Because if we were able to tap into the correct frequencies for doing what they are talking about here, doing with nanoparticles and synthetic man-made components, contraptions, whatever you want to call it, the same thing can be done by the knowledge of and the use of specific frequencies for specific purposes. They talk about how light is a frequency. Different colors of light is a different frequency. And the other thing is too, something that I've been wanting to kind of dive into a little bit here is, because each and every frequency has a specific geometric pattern. We've seen that you sent that in one of your earlier DMs to us, where they demonstrated the patterns that it makes when you pour, like sand or salt or sugar or whatever on a flat surface, and then vibrate that surface at a specific frequency. And you'll get a very specific geometric pattern, and the pattern will be the same for, if you dial it up to 520 megahertz, you'll get this pattern. And then if you change it up to 650 megahertz, the pattern will change. But if you switch it back down to 520 megahertz, you'll get the same pattern you had before. So they're very specific geometric shapes that go along with these frequencies. And each one of those geometric shapes, I think, has some significant function that it could be utilized for. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Simply put, yes. That was a simplistic visual representation of what's actually occurring when you discuss things like vibration or acoustic sound or any of it. It's all categorically, it's all the same thing. It's as you said, it's vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And if the right ones are utilized, we're talking about medical technology that does things like, rather than having chemotherapy, you have targeted energetic therapy that resonates specific to a tumor or a cancer cell, that destroys that cell while leaving the healthy cells, which resonate at a different frequency, it leaves them intact.
Exactly.
So rather than injecting your body with napalm, you're going in there with a microscopic scalpel, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done with sound. It's done with infrasound and higher
Ultrasound.
Well, when you get it,
frequency.
you could go into specific light frequencies. Any number of things that you can aim it can be targeted very specifically at particular things, and destroys only what it resonates with, which is what it is you want to destroy.
That's right. That's the future. That's my hope for the future of medicine. We don't chemical based medicine it's, in my view, it's run its course, and I'm sure there's still going to be some useful applications, so to speak, if you have an acute illness and they know that this particular compound, if they put it in your body and provide frequency therapy, it makes the therapy work that much better. I can see chemical based medicine being useful in that application. But as we know, chemical medicine today, it is the exclusive method of medicine that we have. And all it's given us is symptom management. It doesn't give us a cure. It just
Right.
manages symptoms. And typically they give us more problems than what we went in for in the first place. And that's the wrong way to go, in my view, in medicine. Using frequency for medicine, energy-based medicine, that's what I hope to see with the opening up of patents and the suppressed technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's limitless with respect to what's possible if we can agree that everything is vibration, and they have been studying with scientific specificity frequency, vibration, resonance, and every variant thereof for the last 200, 300 years. They know what they're doing. It's not for us. We're slaves.
Well, now, are you uh, are you satisfied that do you think President Trump is working to provide a much safer and a much more uh, uh,
User friendly.
user friendly advancement of technology where uh, human dignity, human personal rights, personal sovereignty is going to be respected? Because a lot of people said, well, he said the other day, this is like 2 weeks ago, he said, oh, I think 5G is pretty good, and then we'll have 6G, and we're going to be the best out there is. And then a lot of people came out and said, well, there's a bad 5G and there's a good 5G. And he's talking the good 5G. But, what's your gut feeling on that? Do you have one?
Yeah. I might go off on a tangent here because that's a very broad problem. So you're talking about trying to undo a century's worth of strategic manipulation to have an end game for the entire world population, right? That's the whole QAnon predicament. That's the
Right.
paradigm.
It's a little more than a century.
Sure.
A lot more
That's
than a century.
right. With modern technology and the current power players, they've changed over time. But anyway, you're right, DC. You're absolutely right. I think his intentions are as good as the rest of us, if not better. I think he sees that by the time his direct children are his age, there won't be a human existence in the way that he knows and loves. So that's a lot of motivation for a man at the end of his life, a person at the end of their life. That's a wonderful thing. How that's achieved, now you can get into the imperfections of an individual, one versus another, and you can semantically debate that all day long. I think he's doing a lot of great things with respect to 5G. I don't think he's telegraphing what it is that's actually going to happen. Has been his MO with everything that he's done.
I think you're absolutely correct here.
5G is coming. There's no way around it. There's no way we're going to escape it. If we don't participate, we will be left in the dust, and we will be likened to bows and arrows fighting people with firearms.
Mm-hmm.
The future conflict isn't human to human. The future conflict is AI to AI. The question is, what does that look like? Is AI to AI going to be Chinese troops all jacked into a hive mind taking orders like you would see out of Star Wars, versus a free-thinking people that had access to locally based quantum computers that they could ask questions to, have direct communications, run battle formations, all of this stuff organically using the human mind as a quantum computer, as its own sentient individual quantum computer that has a direct connection with other individually sentient quantum computers. That's an entirely different net picture. That looks very different when compared to the Chinese model.
Right. Well, the other thing is, we, I mean, how many people do you really, yes, the deep state, they're all about control and control and control, and any way that they can get more control. They think they have all the answers, and they can, just walk all over anybody in order to have that control. They're freaky that way, because they have little faith, little trust in other folks. But but they have created that situation. They have created it by withholding technologies, without not allowing people to learn and to be educated and to advance forward. They've fomented poverty, starvation, all of these human conditions that are less than optimal, and they've manipulated them all in the guise of control. And what I am actually hoping for is a future where service to others. I've said it 1,000 times if I've said it once. Service to others. My sovereignty ends where yours begins. And I mean, I think we are inherently peaceful. We just want to go about our lives, and as long as we respect other people's ability to do that as well, there shouldn't be any problems. But what we've had these people manipulating the vision and all of these stimuluses to death by 1,000 harassments. That's what I call it as well. It's just it's evil at its if you want to say at its best, at its pinnacle, whatever. It's just purely evil, because they do not have our best intentions in mind, as somebody said in a speech not too long ago.
I wonder who that was.
Yeah.
It's evil in a microcosmic and macrocosmic way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an attempt at control that, and therein lies the reason why I keep coming back to the term weaponizing. These people have controlled the technology, controlled the release of the technology for a very long time, and they've dribbled it out to us in little bits and pieces, the parts that have become obsolete for them because they've advanced beyond those
So
parts.
so I guess what we have to do is, all of this technology is fine, uh, as long as it's there have to be some type of safeguards, that it doesn't cross this barrier when it comes to human machine interaction. And if it does, it has to be at the full disclosure to that organic being, where this stuff is. The idea that this stuff is, I don't have a choice in it. I mean, it's in the air that you breathe, it's in the food that you eat, it's in the water that you're around, it's in every little thing. That is where I have this just amazing problem with it. And TC, or Team C, you mentioned in our phone call earlier today, this is you kind of see this as the mark of the beast technology, right?
Yeah, I do. Going with the last piece that you said, not having a choice with respect to what we're exposed to in our environment. I agree. That's one of the biggest concerns that I have. And I hope when this is all worked out, when we get there, I was going to say if, but when we get there, I would like to see a reinstatement of first and foremost civics so that we don't have a subversive government again, but then a true distribution of the sciences, of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. And if we can disseminate the information, then we can begin to have self-government, self-rule in its intended capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's been removed from us. And that's why we perceive these technologies as being suppressed. They're not, but they are to 99.9% of us. If they were suppressed, that just means, in my view, that they're not discovered because they exist. We just don't know it yet. But there are people that do. And this country was founded upon a free-thinking people that openly shared information within the confines of constitutional-based law. And as we've progressed, as we've evolved from an infant country into an adolescent country, it's really where we're at, I think,
Mm-hmm.
early adolescent. We're faced with a real challenge at this point of maintaining an understanding of our environment because we have advanced so much, so fast. And if we can regain that at our level, it will be much more difficult to become subverted again in the future. If we don't have a reset with respect to sharing information, sharing ideology, sharing theory at a high level, at the, at the way that colleges used to be, for example, or the way basic education used to be, for example. If we don't get back to that, we're done. The future is with the upcoming generation.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
With this, all of this technology requires very, very minute levels of energy in order to operate, and it relies on just massive scalability. You can have 1,000 little tiny things working at microvolts and millimicrovolts and all that other stuff. Now, what happens to that technology? Let's say an EMP, or from the sun.
Solar flare.
Yeah, a solar flash or something like that. What do you think? Would that basically toast all of this stuff?
I think it depends on the complexity of the technology and the length of the antenna or whatever the conductive material is.
Are we looking at it? Are you asking about an EMP level solar flare?
Yeah, well, our planet, I've seen numerous articles that, we've been experiencing, massive cosmic waves hitting the planet to the extent of really warping our geomagnetic shield, our magnetosphere. And, when you start messing with that, and well, not when you, but when we have incoming cosmic energies, whether it be from the sun or deep space or the nearest star blowing up in a gamma blast, there's a tremendous amount of energy that is contained in those things, and these little tiny miniature components, you would think of them as being quite fragile.
Yes, my initial response to that is I'm more concerned about the social implications. Moving into an environment where 90+% of us aren't going to be able to function without some type of grid. And to some extent, I think that's by design. But you could also say that that's part of the evolution of our human experience. I believe that we possess the technology to create an artificial magnetosphere, but that would be a positive application of the weather weapon sciences.
Mm-hmm. What about now? Because excuse me for jumping in here, but we're kind of running down on time here, and I wanted to get kind of follow down this little particular pathway for just a minute or two. But you mentioned the mark of the beast. So how spiritual or would you say that you are, and that how you see all of this technology, and then what you're, if you are fairly spiritual, your understanding of the Bible and how all of this kind of fits in. If and that's okay if you're not, you feel free to expound or not. It's up to you.
Yeah, I've been exposed to God, Christianity, since I was very young. My understanding of the Bible is novice at best. When
We're on the same we're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, when I reached adolescence, I came to the conclusion that the Bible was just an early form of social control. As I have aged, I found myself gravitating back because there's a lot of components in the Bible that tend to repeat themselves, and it's a history book, quite frankly. What I found spiritually is the more I gravitate back, the more discernment, the more understanding, the more clarification I get in my daily life.
Mm-hmm.
So you asked me how religious I am. I'm not really religious.
I did not say religious. Okay, I'm very
spiritual.
spiritual. Okay.
I would be fairly or very spiritual. I've had experiences over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that have been so unique and so impactful that it has changed the course of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing short of God. It's nothing short of divine. And everybody has a unique experience. And my personal opinion is your relationship with God or with spirituality is unique, as is DC's, as is every individual's. The commonality, the common denominator is, how do we express our spirituality to others? What does that even mean? And when you boil it down, it comes down to one word, and it's love.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that is quantified, I think, very, very clearly and correctly in the golden rule. And in America, in this culture, everybody knows the golden rule. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. It's a very, very simple idea, and it really quantifies love, in my view, in a great way.
DC's ready to
I
go
have a
here.
question here, and the question is directly relevant to continuing this conversation. Would you consider coming back on our next hyperdrive show on Wednesday, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and continuing this conversation, because it's really getting into a very, esoteric area now, and we're starting to get to what hyperdrive initially was intended to be, was what if. And so, is there any chance that you could come back and return and continue this conversation?
I'd love to have you back, TMC.
Yes, it would be great, and I think the audience would love it too.
Okay, that sounds great.
We'd
And
love to. Yeah.
And the reason I brought that up is because we are rolling down toward the end of the hour, and the guys upcoming are pretty adamant about wanting their show when they want their show. So,
Well, they
so
got
I
up early in the
don't wanna
morning to
step
do it.
yeah, I don't want to step on them. I want to make sure that they get their opportunity to come in. Percival is here, I see. I don't know if I think Percival's the only one here so far, but our handoff is generally pretty rapid at this point. So just wanted
Well,
to
I just want to say, a huge thanks to you,
Oh,
TMC. I
absolutely.
really appreciate everything you got. You've been dropping to us, and being willing to come on tonight.
Brilliant work. Brilliant.
Absolutely, and totally love what you brought to the program tonight. And I think we can bring some more this Wednesday into Thursday morning. So,
I don't know that we can even put a bookmark in this. There's so much content here, so much stuff that this just opened up a whole new avenue by bringing up the spiritualism aspect of it. Also brings in the what if we're being protected out there in space? What if the Earth is inside of not just a magnetosphere of our making, but a magnetosphere of
the creator's making.
spiritual or extraterrestrial making?
Yeah.
Who knows? We don't know.
That gentleman
Great
is
conversation.
Yeah,
Say
that's
again. TMC, go ahead.
It's what you're speaking of, the magnetosphere and wavelengths and aliens and all of that. That's interdimensionalism, and I agree. There's a layer here that we haven't even scratched the surface on. But as it relates to the mechanical beast system, real fast, look at it in terms of a potential AI war between the United States and China, and think of it in terms of the founding fathers' days, only they had AI, where it was an assimilation of militia, farmers, iron workers, people that go to market every day with their own ideas, their own tools, their own trade, their own everything, versus a homogenized, everybody gets the same thing, everybody thinks the same way, and pit those two together and just add our technology and our AI into it in today's terms, and look at the China model as the beast system. And we can get into more specifics about that later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, my man. And I'm going to go ahead and live chat. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I believe it's being recorded. I am recording it on my machine here through the Zoom. But I believe I saw Black Mirror out there, and if Black Mirror is, as usual, up to his usual standards, I'm sure we have a copy that's being recorded by Black Mirror as well. And the Zoom copy of it does not have a lot of the dropping out, so we get the whole program from that. So I want to say thank you. God bless you all. Thank you, TMC, for joining us tonight. DC, partner, hell of a show tonight. Thank you, my man.
Oh, it has been something else. It's everything I hoped it would be, and a lot more than I expected it would be. So it's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you, TMC, for joining us. Thank you so much. And I will say my goodbye now. I see we're at the 2:00 hour for us here on the West Coast, and Percival's here, and I'm sure he's biting at the bit to come in. So I'm going to say God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting up with all the crap that YouTube has been throwing at us. And please get a hold of this show, because there's so much here that I'm sure you guys missed. Get a hold of this show and check it out. So thank you all. God bless you. And we will see you on Straight Shooting in a few hours.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Again, join us for Straight Shooting in a couple of hours coming up. And in the meantime, Percival and his gang are right there behind us. Have a great evening. God bless.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Hope you had a good show. Sorry I couldn't partake. I was real busy.